I am utterly shocked with how much characterization and complexity Mob has as a character, and how far he will go to change himself. What he did in this episode, that final part of this episode, that truly made me a Mob Psycho fan. Like, I was already enjoying this series by episode 3 to 4. But when I saw what he did, when he stood up against Teru, and he didn't want to use his psychic powers, and he was being choked. He was literally being choked to death, strangled. He didn't fight back. He tried to physically attack him, but he did not use his psychic powers. To see how far Mob would go to not hurt someone with his psychic powers, and then when he goes unconscious, this power, whatever it is, the mystery power, mystery level meter, when this awakens and he demolishes everything, and then when it's all said and done, and he realizes what he has done and how he has failed to change, I'm like, yo, the characterization right now, the fucking character that is Mob. Mob's character is so good. It is so good. I mean, I know the writer of One Punch Man and Mob Psycho can make good characters. Saitama, Genos, that just to name a few right there. But Mob, out of a select few from One Punch Man, I think Mob is currently, out of what I have seen or what I'm aware of, I think Mob is personally one of the most complex characters I think one has ever made. And also the way he is written. It's so good. And just to see how Mob as a character is trying to struggle to change himself, he's trying to overcome what he was in the past and become someone better, it's admirable. But also, it's something that you're just like, holy crap, this poor boy, he's a very special individual, but he breaks down and says, like, I'm not special. And it's just like, yo, it's so crazy, because, I mean, this is kind of what the main theme of this episode was. It was Clash of Ideals. That's exactly what this episode was about. It was two people that look entirely different, like complete opposites. You have it to where Teru, he was someone that looked like really gifted with his looks. He looked absolutely gorgeous as a guy. And then you have it to where Mob, he just is very bland and average. There's nothing that really stands out. And then you have it to where Mob, he has these strong psychic abilities that are unmatched. He's just insanely strong. And when you look at Teru, he also has these strong psychic abilities, but they're nowhere near the level as Mob. And then Mob, that's been gifted more than Teru, he straight up says to him, like, we're not special. See, if you take away our psychic abilities, we're just average people. That's all we have. You have the same complexity about your character as me. For instance, you have the same type of complex. You are someone that is nothing without your psychic abilities. You're just an average person. And if you did not have it, you would be nothing. And the way Mob just straight up said that to him, I'm very conflicted with my viewpoint on that, because out of all the characters in the series, Mob is probably the most special. Out of all the characters, he's the main character, but also with what he's been gifted with, he is very, very special. Even among psychics, he's gifted. But the way Mob comes out and says that I am not special, you are not special, you're similar to me, and that's kind of why you hate me, we're very similar, I'm like, bro, this clash of ideals they have, you have it to where the way they're viewing themselves, and the way Mob just straight up shits on his own self, the way he's acting and also trying to change himself, it's something I'm just so conflicted about. I don't really know how to view his character, and then seeing, Teru trying to talk sense to him, like, what he's trying to do, trying to egg him on to, like, hey, you need to use your psychic abilities, I'm doing all I can, I'm gonna probably hurt you, I'm probably gonna kill you if you continue this, you need to use your psychic abilities against me, show me. And when Mob was refusing that, it was kind of like he was shitting on Teru's entire ideals, and I like the way the back and forth of this was done, and how it eventually led into Teru strangling Mob. And let me explain the irony of that situation. What was used to knock Mob out? What was used to knock him out twice, we have seen so far? One time in the past, he was pushed up against the wall, his head hit the back of the wall, and it seemed like he went unconscious. In this episode, he was getting strangled to death by Teru, and then it was actually how he went into whatever he went into, like how he lost control of his abilities. And what's ironic about all this is that he wasn't knocked unconscious because of Teru's psychic abilities. It wasn't something like that. It was thanks to Teru strangling him with being, like, physical attacks, pretty much. Not using psychic attacks or anything against him. He just used his hands, like normal humans are gifted, and he tried to strangle him to stop him. And then when you had it to where Mob, when he tried to punch back, he couldn't do nothing against him. And then all of a sudden, when he used his psychic abilities, he won. And to see the way that scene was done, it adds so much more impact to show how far Mob would go, but also how different they are and how, like, similar they are at the same time. And I love the way One actually wrote these two characters. These characters, it's absolutely brilliant. I really love what One did with Mob's character. It stuns me. It really does. And when he realized he failed to change, he failed to stop using his powers to hurt others, I'm like, yo, this is so good. This is absolutely amazing. It is so awesome to see something like this layer of characterization he got, and how he has to develop from this point onward. I think out of all the characters I've seen so far from One Punch Man to Mob Psycho, Mob is definitely one of those characters that has so much potential to develop into something amazing. I mean, his character right now could become something that surpasses all other characters I've seen so far from any of One's previous works, because this right here, what One has going for him right now with Mob, is his complex nature with how he wants to hold in his emotions, and he bottles them up, and then he explodes, and he directs them at different points, not even knowing where to direct his emotions at. He just explodes, and he can hurt people, and that's exactly how humans are in nature as well. An average human being, eventually you will be overcome by emotions, and you will explode. That's how normal people are. Even I get overcome with emotions sometimes. I'm not joking, I'm human as well. Everybody, at one point in their life, they get overcome with emotions, sadness, grief, anger, happiness, whatever emotion. You just get these emotions flowing in you, and sometimes you just gotta let them out. You gotta let them out. And there has to be a bottle point where it's built up so much where you explode. And that's what happened to Mob. This man, he was so overcome with sadness for what he did, and how he realized how he hurt someone and broke what he didn't want to do. It was brilliant. It was well executed when it came to the writing, to the tension, even the art and animation. The production team did a very good job with this episode when it came to setting up the themes that the episode was trying to display, especially when it came to the tone shifts. The tone shifts, they need more looking into. I gotta say right now that I don't think this episode would have been as good if it wouldn't have probably been One. Because if there's one thing that One knows how to do when it comes to writing his series, he knows how to shift from comedy to serious moments at a dime, drop of a dime. It's instant. And I'm like, I love when he does this, because he does it in One Punch Man when he's having like Saitama fight someone or some other characters. He switches these comedy segments to a very serious moment like that, and it flows. It actually meshes well, and it doesn't feel like, oh, this is fucking stupid as fuck. Like, why would this character be like comedy one moment and then turn into serious next? It just doesn't fit right. And One completely negates that. It's like he knows how to write comedy in serious moments and make it flow back and forth in the proper fashion, and he did a very good job with that in this episode with the way he wrote the series. And I also have to commend the production team for being able to display these tone shifts in a very tasteful fashion that didn't distract from the core message of this episode. So one last thing I want to dive into is definitely the final segment of the episode when it came to Teru realizing what Mob was, or like what is this that he is using. Mob, he had some form of presence that Teru was able to sense. Teru sensed something inside of him. And Mob was absorbing all these psychic abilities in the atmosphere and from others into himself, which shows that he has a very great vessel to hold all this power, but also whatever he sensed inside of him had this dark, menacing aura, and you had it to where Teru didn't realize what it was, but it was something that should not have been awakened. And it makes you wonder, what exactly is that? Is that like just the emotions, the unconscious emotions of Mob leaking out, or is that something else, an entity, like, you know, maybe a spirit or a ghost or something inside of him, because, I mean, we do know there is paranormal stuff in this series, not just supernatural abilities, but also ghost and stuff, because we have seen it. Dimple is a perfect example. So when you take a moment to look at that, what exactly is that inside of Mob? Is that some form of creature? Is that actually Mob's hidden side of his personality that we never get to see? Because if there is one thing that this series has going for it, it's definitely Mob's character and his persona, the way we perceive him and the way he perceives himself. And I wonder if that side we saw when he went unconscious is maybe a different personality. For instance, maybe his darker side to him that he bottles up constantly and he just, you know, lashes out when he goes unconscious. Maybe something like that, or it could be some form of creature inside of him. I have no idea. Now, another thing to dive into, though, apparently Mob's brother got hurt in the past, and this lets us know exactly why Mob never wanted to use his psychic abilities, why he doesn't want himself to believe he's special, and why he kind of formed this complex to begin with. When he hurt his brother, and he hurt everyone, it looked really bad. It absolutely bad if you looked at the flashback. That could honestly hurt someone psychologically. I mean, the way Mob had to see his brother hurt like that, and he realizes he was the reason for it, it's definitely something that you would carry with you and you won't forget, and so it explains why Mob constantly hides his actual self, his powers, and why he doesn't want to use them as much against others is because of that reason what happened. But we come to find out that Mob's brother doesn't blame Mob, but we know that Mob's brother blames whatever is inside of him, whatever that awakens when Mob goes unconscious. So that's left to be explained exactly what that is. We don't know if that's another side to Mob, for instance, like maybe like a dormant, like darker side to him that he unlocks when, you know, all of his emotions reach to that certain point, or maybe, you know, it's a different spirit or something inside of him. It's not explained, and I'm willing to bet eventually it will, but for now it's on the table and we can only guess at it. So episode overall. It was a phenomenal episode. Best episode of Mob Psycho to date. It is definitely the best episode. I'm kind of sad that Dimple died because, I mean, even though he was kind of a scumbag in some ways, he still was a really good person in other ways. And I do hope he does come back. I hope he's not, you know, completely dead. Even though Mob searched for him for like 3 hours, he couldn't find him. I do hope that eventually maybe Dimple comes back and he survives or whatever, because it would suck if that was like the last time we saw him. I mean, he was a really cool character. He had a lot of potential for growth and characterization, and the way, you know, one has been writing this series, especially with some of the characters like Mob, I would really hope Dimple would go through a nice, good character development arc. But if we don't get that, I guess it's okay, but I would like to see Dimple actually come back. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You'll have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.